Hello to all of you attending this very special event today, Lady Diversity Power, why diversity is the new way to do business. And to the incredible collective of powerhouse, unstoppable women who are speaking alongside to me. I am just so honoured to be on the stage with you today. This entire theme could not be closer to my heart. And today I would love to demonstrate how starting with our why is at the cornerstone of true and authentic leadership. You know, I absolutely adore you, Hazel Herrington, and the magnetic energy that you create. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to tell about my story and how I got to be here today. A woman who knows her purpose, her passion, her vision, and most importantly, her why. You know, I was recently asked why I chose to create the Women's Biz Tribe and why be a global success coach. And as I searched for my standard reply, I activated one of my key drivers. At that moment, the answer became glaringly obvious to me. At the very core of my why is that I choose to remain uncomfortable about lack of diversity, lack of inclusion, lack of acceptance of everyone's uniqueness. And for me, I'd love to reference that in line with gender inequality today, because I'm committed to be part of that long-term solution in the work that I do with women around the globe. You see, gender inequality is not acceptable. It never has been. In fact, it serves no value at all. So behind every decision I make, I ask myself, is this helping or hindering my why, my purpose? Fundamentally, I believe that 50% of the population should have 50% of the available opportunities, and more importantly, 100% of the rights and entitlements that they deserve. Women around the world deserve safety, security, health, wealth, education, and freedom to make choices that will empower their life. But deserving and receiving are not simple to achieve. The world has undergone scrutiny at the hands of a pandemic, war, and economic backlashes. And the current issues plaguing the world today are a tragedy and should not be normalized, never normalized. Now, a great fear of mine is that we stop advocating for an equal world whilst attending to one tragedy after the next. We can't just be reactive. We have to be proactive. We have to be intentional about the actions that we make, the choices that we make day to day, because they will reflect our future. You see, it is when we accept the unacceptable that we reduce our capacity to build the fabric of society that we require. I remember my grandmothers used to say to me, Annie, you reap what you sow. And I totally agree with that. We need to be sowing with our future generations in mind. We need to make sure that these people who are going to inherit the earth after we are long and gone have had people before them who had supported all aspects of their diversity, that they have gender empowerment, that if they have a disability, if they have different ethnicities, if they have different religious beliefs, everybody has a right to be on this planet the way they were born to be. We can be encouraged that we do now in most places of the world have government agendas that rally with society for a better world, that we are more respectful of diversity, but we continue to see horrific aftermaths of war and sex trafficking and unwanted pregnancies in teenagers, poverty, genital mutilation, violence, and the forever lingering gender pay gap disparity. As a C-suite leader, I'm passionate about how to debunk myths and educate women on how to transform their professional careers with a seven-figure mindset. But my success didn't get handed to me on a platter. Starting my career as a registered nurse, I went on to become a health educationist, a change management CEO, and entrepreneur while raising my family of 5, including 2 sets of twins born just 26 months apart. With 3 degrees under my belt, I'm now an inspirational leader and global speaker for women in business. But to be honest with you, it was actually the intentional steps that I took and the mindset that I developed that taught me the most about pushing the limits on what is truly possible. I'd love to share a story with you, which was my lived reality when I went for a role about a decade ago. It was a CEO role, and I'd been acting in a position that I felt that I would then probably be the likely candidate to get that permanent position. As the panel welcomed me in and started shaking my hand, I had this amazing moment that I looked around and I couldn't believe the reality. The reality was that I had 6 men suddenly welcome me. They were all white Australian men. There was not one woman on the panel. There was not one person of an obvious difference in ethnicity. And I immediately felt saddened by that. If going into an interview, wouldn't it be amazing, I thought, of, having an equal representation of men and women on that interview panel? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they reflected the people that we were actually going to be serving should I secure that role as their CEO? People of diverse backgrounds, people that reflected multicultural Australia. And while I didn't want to prejudge that therefore this was going to not be a pleasant experience, I was confronted by one of the final questions that I was asked at that interview. And the question was, Annie, if you are successful in this role, who is going to be looking after your children? Because this is a very senior role and it is going to require 100% commitment. I was just floored. I was absolutely floored. Would my husband be asked that question? Would any other male be asked that question? Was it even appropriate for them to be thinking that my childcare arrangements would become a factor that we would be discussing at a senior executive interview? And so I was so floored by that and the whole scenario. I actually, at the end of that, just pulled out. I didn't want to work for that organization, and I moved on to other things. But it actually created a bit of a fuel in my belly to actually say, you know what, we deserve better. We need to be champions of change. I can be part of that. As I went on for another decade of CEO roles in different organizations, I then realized that individually, when we are able to be successful leaders, we are able to then use our power and influence to ensure that things are done better. We need to champion equal representation in all key areas of influence around the world. As poetic as hope is not enough. Hope does not shift perspectives at a rate hope needs to. Hope does not encourage a woman downtrodden by abuse and neglect. Hope is love, and hope is a dream we should all cling to, but hope won't get to the change makers that matter. We need actionable and tangible solutions. We need to be unapologetic about using our voice to demand a higher standard. We need to provide solutions that work for the betterment of society. We need to unite with a narrative that inspires and empowers and equips. And this is what we are doing here today. We can do better, each and every one of us, but together, the collective actually is what breaks barriers, visible and invisible, moving forward. So how do we do that as business leaders? Break through the barriers that are currently designed to inhibit us from achieving equal success. We must clearly articulate the issues, right, that are compounding the progress to change: cost, impact, and disparity. We must be strategic and purpose-driven. I reiterate, we need to get uncomfortable first, to desire enough discomfort to drive mindset shifts that have been formed and validated and even championed over hundreds of years. When we have arrived at a not so comfy reality, it is then that we need to measure our success, and that's then going to need data. Recently, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency produced a scorecard representing 4 million Australian employees, or about 40% of our workforce. The data painted a picture of the current reality, and it challenged me to stay uncomfortable. Despite women being more highly educated and comprising 47.4% of all employed persons, women are just not making the cut. Men are twice as likely as women to be in the top earning quartile, earning $120,000 and above per year, while women are 50% more likely than men to be at the bottom quartile, earning $60,000 or less per year. The data reports that women earn 14.2% less than men for comparative jobs. That equates to $25,800 less in the bank, resulting in 23.4% less superannuation at retirement. The gender gap is real, very real, and very unacceptable. When 47.4% of the workforce constitute 67.6% of all part-time employees and the lion's share of casual positions, there will be significant consequences. And when a global pandemic hit, we're all seeing the results of that. So what is my theory about juggling babies and boardrooms and billions of dollar budgets? Okay, we need women in leadership so their voice can be heard and their value recognized. But most of all, we want to be equally represented in chair positions and executive positions. We need targeted positions of power and influence. And we need to be bold about claiming that, all right? Why? Because only 18 women are among the CEOs of Australia's largest 300 companies, or 6.2%, according to the 2021 Chief Executive Women's Senior Executive Census. Australia's leading publication, the Sydney Morning Herald, reported that only one woman was promoted to the role of chief executive out of 25 appointments at Australia's largest companies over the past year. All right, these are our realities. This is showing us that we're actually going backwards as a result of the pandemic, and we really need to start talking about that and talking about how we can not only reverse the trend and get back to where we were, actually start looking at equality. I want you to join me in empowering women to value their worth. To do this, we need to speak out. We need to provide workable solutions, supporting each other to ensure our foundations are strong and our voice unified. Data captured by the UN Women suggests at the current rate, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years. Currently, just 13 countries have a woman head of state. So it is together that we need to take intentional actions to unite and empower individuals and organizations who are working to achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 5, gender equality and inclusion. We must be bold and brave and practice what we preach. If we continue to struggle to employ and inspire women to seek education, to explore professional expansion, and to remove the gender defaults when faced with a crisis, our political leaders will not be representative of those they serve. They need to be. When the pandemic triggered our global economic fallout, COVID-19 showed us that women were the first to lose their jobs. Millions of women downed tools and self-sacrificed their success to homeschool their children. And sadly, we saw the devastating rise of domestic violence, which spiked 4 times greater than 5 years prior. We need to remain very uncomfortable about this. When your income and opportunities and spirit have been impacted so significantly, it makes it extremely unlikely that you'll be mentally and physically positioned to influence positive change. You know, if we reflect on Maslow's hierarchy of need, it taught us very clearly that you cannot operate at the optimal capacity when your core needs are threatened. And newsflash to everybody, they have been threatened. So while we need to continually celebrate every little step of progress that we make to remove the barriers to equality, we need to make sure that we continue to strive until equality is reached and not before. The stories in this book are powerful. They reflect all of the speakers that we've heard today, all of these amazing women's journeys, and they are diverse because they reflect humanity. They have all had challenges to overcome, visible and invisible. You know, me, myself, I had got married at 20, had twins at 23, had another set of twins at 25, then navigated 3 degrees to C-suite in a largely male-dominated era. Life is challenging. We have all had our fair share of ups and downs, and sadly, many people in the world have it much harder than others. And this is not fair. We need to do all that we can to create an environment in the world that everyone has their rights, their human rights respected and valued. And I thank you, Hazel Herrington, for putting together this amazing book collaboration, this incredible event today, to give women the platform to be able to share how they see the challenges in a broad range of areas of diversity and what we can do to proactively overcome the challenges. And the secret to that is in the collective. And I am honoured and thrilled to be part of this collective of women today.